3 weeks after the Ukraine war, no one can say for sure what the outcome of the war will be. The description of the war situation in the eastern city of Kharkiv speaks of a difficult conflict. A BBC report from the battlefield said Russian troops were firing artillery shells and rockets. And Ukrainian troops are using anti-tank weapons supplied by the West to build tall piles with their empty boxes. In the first few days of the war, the Ukrainian army was in a state of shock. They did not know what to do. But after 3 weeks of fighting, they have decided to continue fighting. A total of 234 civilians have been killed in Kharkiv since March 16th. According to the Ukrainian government. But the thing that no one can ignore is the deep thick layer of mud. As soon as you walk, your shoes sink in the mud. As soon as the snow starts to melt at the end of winter, this mud issue can cause serious problems in military operations. Open source intelligence indicates that many Russian military vehicles, even tanks and armored vehicles, are stuck in deep mud. This mudslinging is preventing the Russians from ensuring the outcome of the war, as Ukraine's military has increased its resilience. According to an AFP report, all roads in Ukraine, except paved roads, have become impassable since the snow melted. For the last 200 years, the army under Napoleon and Hitler has had to deal with the mud problem. Twice a year the roads in this area get muddy. Ordinary people call this mud Rasputitsa. Many in the West respect this mud and call it General Mud. Before the war, many Western analysts had speculated that Russian President Vladimir Putin might delay the operation in Ukraine because of the weather. As early as November 2021, a Bloomberg report stated that spring mud could play a significant role in determining the timing of Russian operations. Although analysts are not convinced of Putin's decision, their early warning about the weather was quite accurate. In an article before the war in February, Spencer Meredith, a professor at the U.S. National Defense University, said that if Ukrainian troops destroyed paved roads, it would be very difficult for Russian troops to move in early spring. Mykola Beleskov, a Ukrainian military analyst, says in many cases Russian troops have been forced to flee on foot after their tanks and other vehicles got stuck in the middle of the field. This situation will get worse when the weather gets a little warmer and with it comes rain. Analysts say the mudslides lasted for 3 to 4 weeks, beginning in the second half of March. Michel Goya, a former French military officer, says the mudslides will force Russian generals to limit their forces to main roads. As a result, Russian vehicles are more likely to be attacked by Ukrainian forces. The US media, NBC, reported that a building in the southern Ukrainian city of Mariupol had children, written in large letters on it, which was clearly visible in satellite images. But on March 17th, the Russians bombed the building. City leaders say there were many women and children in the building. Some analysts have suggested that Putin may be looking at the inhumane tactics of Chechnya and Syria to break the morale of the Ukrainian people, perhaps as his army is mired in mud, food and fuel shortages, and rising military casualties. According to a Bloomberg report, Ukraine has received the highest number of anti-tank weapons for any country in recent history. These include 3,615 NLAW or NI short-range missiles supplied by the British. Germany supplies 1,000 missiles, Norway 2,000, Sweden 5,000. And the United States has given an unknown number of Javelin long-range missiles. In addition, more countries have provided weapons of mass destruction. Phillips O'Brien, a professor at Britain's Andrews University, says many countries have emptied their stockpiles of missiles and supplied them to Ukraine. These have been added to Ukraine's own missiles. Both the NI and the Javelin missiles strike from the top of the tank, where the armor is the least. Based on open-source intelligence, the defense website Oryx says the Russians have lost at least 214 tanks. In all, 1292 cars were lost. Ukraine has lost at least 75 tanks and 343 vehicles in total. Jason Lyle, a professor at Dartmouth College in the United States, said in a Twitter message that the Ukrainian army had 4 cavalry fighters in the war, Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger anti-aircraft missiles and anti-missile mudslides. Tick. Pavel Fagenhauer of the Jamestown Foundation says that some people in Ukraine have started calling the Javelin missile Street Javelin. And many feel that just because Putin is so concerned about the weather, does not mean that he is underestimating Ukraine's resilience. And the Russian military's combat capabilities have been magnified enough. Fagenhauer says most Russian army generals have fought in Syria. There were deadly bombings in the cities of Aleppo and Homs, as well as special training for troops inside the city. They may want to use those experiences in the days ahead. If implemented, it could turn into a nightmare inside the city.